Hey, hey. All right, all right, all right, all
All right.
right.
Are we live? Are we going live? What's going
We
on?
already are. This
All
is what it
right.
is. Welcome.
The- welcome. All right. This is our first live stream. Bear with us. We are figuring everything out on the fly, but we're having a good time.
Mm.
Welcome to another installment of the Super Cinema Bros. Actually, let's do it the way we always do it. My name is Austin,
My name is Josiah.
and we are the
Super
Super Cinema
Cinema Bros.
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 All right. How's it going, Mr. Josiah?
Hey, Austin. Doing well, man. Doing well today. It's good. It's a good day.
All right.
How
So
about you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm back on my fitness grind. So it's the first day. I'm a little sore, but I'm ready to get into this review. So, what do we have on the docket today?
On the docket today, we got today's exercise routine, busting out of the sand at full sprint, also known as Dune Part 2.
That's right. Balloons for Dune Part 2. Do they deserve those balloons? Do they really deserve those balloons? We're going to find out.
We shall.
All right. So,
Mm-hmm.
where should we start with this? Let's do this.
Yeah.
Josiah, you tell me kind of. Actually, before we get started, let's do the. This is a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Check this out. Spoiler alert. You've
Get
been
out of
alerted.
here.
You've been warned.
Run. If you don't want to know anything about this
Spoiler
movie,
alert.
leave. Run.
This review is for folks who have already seen Dune Part 2. We will be
Yeah, pretty
spoiling the
much.
movie. So you
Pretty
can
much.
come back, check this out later after you've seen it, but this is a spoiler alert. This is a spoiler review. All right.
Kick
Josiah, can you
off.
give us a real quick, can you give us a real quick synopsis of what this movie is and what it's about, and then we'll kind of get into what we liked and didn't like about it.
Okay. All right. All right. So do you want me to give a review, not review, a summary of this one, or the story up to this one? Like, probably should just
Well,
be
well,
this
well,
one. We
well,
already talked about the last one.
yeah, let's keep it to this one. Um, we will post another review of the first part
Yeah.
one.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be just a regular podcast one. We'll get that up as soon as we can.
Mm.
But yeah, we're just going to start from part two. We're not going to recap part one. Chances are you've already seen part one. So we're just going to jump right in.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's see. This movie, this Dune Part 2, we start off with Paul and his mom, who I forget her name at the moment. Uh, they're in the Furman group. You know, they're almost a part of them. They're living the life out there in the dune. They seem to be traveling to a location. We eventually find out that they're traveling to meet up with at their main base, which is this giant rock structure in the desert that hides them inside with gallons and decaliters of water that we'll get to later on. So yeah, Harkonnen are pursuing them, trying to figure out if there are any more of the Atreides clan left around, or they think that they are. Oh, actually, now they've also moved on to simultaneously restarting their spice harvesting, and they want to just wipe out all the Furmen on the planet. At least all the Furmen in the northern half of the planet. They seem to be not caring as much about the southern half of the planet, but get to that a little bit later. Yeah. So first half of the movie is basically Paul becoming one of the Furmen. He's learning more about their culture. He's learning more about how they go about life out there in the desert, how they interact with the worms. How life is just. One second. It seems like Mr. Austin is frozen here for some reason.
Uh, Hang on.
Oh, there we go.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back, but I definitely am getting a delay. Hmm.
Okay. Give it a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
All right. How am I doing?
Okay. I think it's back. Yeah, I think we're back.
All right.
All right. So I'll continue. Paul is basically becoming. He's on the path to become the Furman. One of the Furman. He is wanting to primarily just do that, wanting to help save them, help rescue them from the Harkonnen oppression. But his mom just keeps on going deeper and deeper and deeper into the prophecy of the chosen one and that he's the chosen one, doing everything that she can to like ensure that he becomes this. And throughout the film, yeah, we wound up jumping around the galaxy a little bit to the Emperor, who is being basically controlled by one of the sisters, basically like space witch sisters of the same tribe and clan that the mom is a part of, and he's being manipulated. The Harkonnen are being manipulated. Um, a series of events winds up happening. We get to the end of the movie where basically the Emperor is coaxed down to the planet, and eventually he's challenged to. Paul challenges him to basically take over everything. He winds up having a fight with this Harkonnen that the sisters are trying to set up to be the same prophesied one. Lo and behold, Paul winds up winning, and then into the movie is basically the mom looking all like proud and smug over at the older witch sister lady, and they're like having this mental discussion. Oh, sorry. But after that, technically, we do have Zendaya's character, Chani. She's bouncing. She's getting up out of there because Paul has betrayed her. He's trying to save her, but he's also betrayed her at the same time. So, anyways, that's basically what happens during this film, and we'll get into more details throughout here. What do you think about that? Do you want? Is there anything you want to add on to
Yeah. You know what?
it?
You know what?
Look,
Let's get into what we liked.
yeah,
Um,
but that
let's just
works
jump
for a
right into
quick
that.
summary. That works
Oh,
for
that's
a.
perfect. That's
Okay.
totally fine. I'm doing color commentary in my head, so
Yes.
don't worry about me. I'm like, yeah, that's what happened. Um,
Uh huh.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, but thumbs up for your film synopsis.
Thanks. Good guy, Paul. Good guy, Paul. You know.
Yeah. All right. So, Josiah, what did you like about this movie?
I liked most things about this movie. Being in the theater, I went to IMAX 70 millimeter experience with my wife, and yeah, we were sitting probably about halfway, which is about as close as I want to be. Looked awesome. Yeah, cinematography, fantastic. He used significantly less slow mo in this movie, so I wound up enjoying it a whole lot more. Um, yeah, just beautiful shots. There's some cool action set pieces in here with the worms and with the characters. The characters I wound up finding a bit more interesting this time because we get to spend a lot more time with the characters this time, like conversing and actually like doing things. The first movie felt like it was a lot of like just ambiance and like just slow, chilling, a lot of dramatic, melodramatic kind of shots, and that's still in here. But yeah, that music. Oh gosh, yeah, uh huh. The music
Yeah.
did vary it up a little bit more, a lot more in this film too. Most of the actors did fantastic job. Yeah, I'll be shouting out Javier Bardem later on. Again, I'll be going into detail after the shout out. I mean here, and
The operative term is most.
yeah,
We'll get
uh
into
huh,
that.
yeah. This movie also does wind up getting a bit of that like star cameo sort of thing, but yeah, that's. Sorry, I'm sticking to what's good. I was engaged the entire film. There were only a couple slower moments for me, so I liked this movie a lot more than the first film. That said, yeah, man, it looked like they're living out in the desert. It looked like they're living out on a dusty, dirty, uninhabitable planet. The other alien sort of infrastructure, not alien, but like sci-fi infrastructure and locations looked all believable. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, yeah, I guess, is like I felt like this place was a real place, and I was immersed in the characters. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I'll bring up more things I like as we go on. What about you, man?
Yes, I thought the production or set design was really, really good. I really think that whatever balance they struck between making models, practical effects, computer generated images, whatever the ratio is in this movie, it was done to really good effect. I
Mm.
think that the acting, for the most part, is pretty solid. It's about what you would expect. I want to give a big shout out to Javier Bardem. I felt like his emotions are what carried the movie and
Mm.
what his character was feeling
Yeah.
more than any other character. There were other super emotional characters. David Batista's character, he was super angry and frumpy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Harkonnens stay killing folks for the slightest infractions. Bro,
Yeah.
bro, your shoe is untied. Like, all right, you know.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Did you say
So
good morning?
it's 10:30, bro. you know, like all right. Good day, sir. Like, all right.
I
So,
guess the morning
um,
bird gets the worm.
yeah. I would say overall costume design was really good.
Yeah.
I also watched it in 70 millimeter. So I'm an 80s baby. So I grew up hearing that familiar sound of the projector, you know? It
Mm.
sounds like the soft flutter of a lawnmower out in the distance. And that's very nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
That takes me back to my childhood. So I always enjoy it when I get to experience that in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the movie
it's
was shot to be viewed on a wide aspect ratio, just like the first movie. And so
mm.
the things I liked about the first movie, as far as like close up scenes and the sharpness of the lens and the way the camera moved and the wide pan out shots, those were all done really well in this movie as well. I really liked watching either the bad guys or Josh Brolin's character when they do the whole floating thing. They're either
Yes.
floating up or he's floating down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
However they did that, whatever effect they used, whether it was strings or wires or cords, whatever they did, I really liked that. That was really fun.
It's a really cool scene. Yeah. Like that's a an eye-catching, striking sort of moment that you want in the beginning of a movie, you know.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So those were good. Okay, so one of my biggest critiques of the first movie, I think you shared that critique, was the whole, oh, the shield. When you hit it fast, it blocks. When you hit it slow, then you can kill somebody.
Mhm.
I feel like they largely abandoned trying to make that make sense in this movie. And
Yeah.
when somebody got hit, they got hit. And I was thankful for that, because trying to make that make sense, to reconcile that when you're watching a busy frantic action scene, it's too much. And it
Mhm.
takes away more than it gives, more than it adds. And so I'm glad that they didn't trifle around too much with that in the fight scenes. The fight scenes were just fight scenes.
Yeah,
And
there was only
so,
one moment that focused on that. It was the moment when Faye Rotha was, having his like gladiator moment, and he's fighting these three crippled dudes basically, and then he turns it off for the last guy. But they
right.
did get rid of it. They did. They 100% did. Even at the beginning when the Harkonnens that are flying around, floating around, getting all like imposing, they just get shot, and it's like, oh well, technically that's what that that barrier protects them from. But
Right.
someone made a decision that it was boring to see because it was boring to see when they were using the shields.
Right. Right, right, right. And you know what else I liked about this movie?
What?
Zendaya.
Oh.
One of my favorite scenes of the movie is when Zendaya and Paul, she's showing him how to use like the wind sail to collect moisture, and she's like, "Stop looking at me like that." You know what I would do if I was Paul in that situation? I'd keep looking at her like that.
Dang.
Yeah,
This is
that's
how
what I
you
would
do it.
do in that situation.
This is how you do it.
Um,
Keep telling them. Yeah, just teach these guys. Teach them all.
yeah, stop looking at me like that. Like this. Can I do it again? Yeah. So shout outs to Zendaya. She did her thing in this movie. Um, Actually, shout out to what's her name? You're good at these names, ladies and gentlemen. I can't remember actors' names to save my life. You
Oh,
know,
Florence Pugh.
yes, Florence Pugh. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty unique name. I should remember it, but I won't.
Hmm.
Um,
There was also Anya
yeah,
Taylor Joy. She got a moment in there too.
Anya Taylor. Yes, the girl from Queen's Gambit.
Yes.
Yeah, she had a quick cameo, and
Hmm.
so
She looked like she was
she's
just
cool.
about to stroll over to her Mad Max Furiosa movie, which they played the trailer before for.
I mean, she looked like redhead gender swap Obi-Wan Kenobi, from the prequels. That's fine, like
Mm,
whatever. She was doing her thing. I
yeah.
guess it's foreshadowing. Yeah, so that's fine. She was there. I even like Zendaya's homegirl in the movie. She mostly speaks in another language. She was the one
Mm,
kind of like giving Paul a hard time when he was trying to ride the snail and all that stuff. She
yeah.
was cool.
You mean
Um,
the worm? Yes, she was. She was.
yeah,
She was cool.
yeah, I liked her.
Side tangent for things that didn't work because you brought her up. They did that girl dirty. Like she got she got she got real
She
dirty.
got the blowtorch. Yeah, she got the blowtorch. I'm
She
glad they
was the
didn't show it
one.
because that just would have been
Yeah, that
dark. But
that'd have
yeah, I
been
was
really
like,
dark.
she
She was
was.
like the
I
one
mean, given
Furman that got captured by them. Apparently.
how, of all the people, how did she? Unless she like sacrificed herself, like,
Uh huh. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't really show how she ended up there,
No.
and they didn't show her getting her face melted off with the blowtorch. So I'm actually cool with that.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, continue back to
um,
the things you like. Sorry.
yeah. I think that's pretty much the things that most stuck out to me.
Oh yeah, they also had Leia Sado in here. She was the
Man,
the the seducer of Fade Rotha, one of the
oh, one of the
Bene
Benihana
Gesserit.
Gesserit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
She got a whole
yeah,
baby inside her now.
yeah. Um, yeah, I got more to say about that later.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, oh, you know what? I actually liked it when they had the whole Pantheon gladiator scene. It was just like in black and white. I think that actually really worked.
Mm-hmm.
Just for setting the tone of who the character was.
It did. Yeah.
As
It
far
did.
as who the character actually was, eh, I don't know, whatever.
True.
But
Yes.
the ambiance was set really nicely, and
Mm-hmm.
so uh, I like that. Um, I tend to like the Skarsgård family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they tend to do their roles really well. So That's cool. Um, the
Yeah,
Skarsgård family and
Stellan Stellan
the
was
Quaid
was
family.
awesome.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
Skarsgårds and the Quaids, they you know, that family, they raise them right. You know, they get them into good acting schools or whatever. And yeah, so you know, it's Randy Quaid and Jack Quaid. There's a
Yes.
couple Skarsgårds. They're all like in different movies.
Mhm.
But whichever Skarsgård, he's like the senior Skarsgård. He's the guy that was in Good Will Hunting. He was the Harvard professor, the math professor. It's that guy, Skarsgård, whatever.
Stellan, right? I believe Stellan.
Stellan Skarsgård, yeah. I like the Skarsgårds.
Yeah, they're
Even though
cool.
he spent like half of this movie in like weird, like soupy goop, but like it's still cool.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah. I mean, the music is fine. It's serviceable. Like I mean, it's cool. Um, I think they were really out in the Sahara or somewhere out in Africa for at least part of it. Um,
I feel like they had to
yeah.
have been. Yeah, those locations, unless they were just man spending a crazy amount of money on making sets, like it seems like it would
Yeah.
make the most sense to go where actual sand dunes and everything are.
Yeah, they definitely did. I stuck around and watched the credits. So they were globetrotting to film this movie for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Get those rock formations and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which to
hats
that end,
off
I
to
mean, they
the
did keep the sand color like consistent. Not that I know like how varied sand color becomes around the world, but yeah.
right. Actually, okay, so yeah, number one, big shout out to whoever did the scouting and the principal photography, like all those folks.
Hmm.
Big round of applause for them. And whoever did the color grading, I actually think they did a really good job.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, there was like this kind of like this orangish brown, especially it was really apparent in the beginning of the movie. It had this weird kind of orangish brown hue, and it really made you feel like you were in the desert, like in a hot, intensely hot desert. And so
Yeah.
that was cool. Um, yeah, I think that sums up like the things that really pop out at me that I really enjoyed. Is there anything else you want to add before we start skewering this movie?
Before we just absolutely obliterate it.
Ch-ch-
Yeah,
ch-ch.
again, I'm intrigued by character, intrigued by world and lore. It does let me down in a number of areas, but once again, I'm very curious to see like to go back, read the actual book or listen to an audiobook and yeah, see just how faithful they did. I think it was a really good balance between showing photography of the characters like literally there in the present, but then also cutting back and forth between like the baby inside the mom's belly and some of the different dreams and prophecy, like a future sight moment. So I think it had the ability to become a whole lot weirder and a whole lot more incoherent, but I think it was executed pretty awesome in those areas in regards to all that was there in the
Yeah.
storytelling.
Now, based on the video essay I watched regarding um, the Dune anthology, all the books, the first couple books are the most grounded in like humanity and reality. It doesn't get really, really weird until like a couple books in, as I understand.
Okay.
So,
Got it. Got it.
um, yeah, just on a side note, I think
Yeah.
that after they make the first couple of films based on maybe the first and second book, from there it'll probably end up being like I don't know, something like akin to like a Babylon 5 kind of like either live action series or animated series because it gets so weird and it gets so sci-fi like super weird and I don't think a general audience is gonna like sit through 2.5 hours of that.
Mm,
It gets really
yeah.
wonky, a lot of political intrigue, a lot of like just everlasting worm gods and just all kinds of just weird stuff that like most people are just going to check out of. I would assume, and so
Mm,
my guess is they're if the movies are successful and they want to continue building and making content that covers the other books It'll be like a Netflix series or a Max series, maybe even Apple TV Plus that will pick it up.
Mm,
But yeah,
yeah, I
it'll
did
either
see
be
that there
animated
was.
or, whatever, however they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I had seen that there was maybe a couple decades ago a TV series version of like some of the later books or something that had James McAvoy in it. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they will continue on afterwards. That'd be cool. Oh, last thing I'll say is I actually did dig the like little, well, it's the moderate amount of like romance that they had in there between the two characters. At least the chemistry seemed to be there that wound up working at. It wound up being 80% believable for me that they were actually in a relationship. But maybe that's just me touching upon like what you were touching upon. Yeah, there's some character dynamics in movies romantically that just kind of make me happy. Like for instance, in the Amazing Spider-Man films, the dynamic between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone was really good, and that helped to like that was probably like this one of the strongest things in those two movies that they made. I think this was heading in that direction too. Um, yeah, so moderately
Okay.
believable in that area. But anyways,
Yeah, it was like 65-70 for me.
yeah,
Um, I just like Zendaya, so.
yeah, okay,
Anyway, okay. So, all right, let's get into the criticisms of this film.
all right, all
Um,
right, all right.
where do you want to start?
I think I'll say once again. I'll start with. I feel as if my criticisms primarily come from one or two performances that either are just not my jam, or it's the characters, and then the main criticisms I have come from just this the plot, which is yet again probably consistent with the books, and so I feel like maybe my qualms are with the plot and character decisions that were written in the original source material.
Yeah. How there's a lot that I can
That's
say.
that's a big one. That's a big one. Sorry, let me start off with a smaller, easier one. Okay, I'll say
Okay.
this: I was watching 70 millimeter IMAX. I felt like I was in a good place in the theater, and yet when there was hand to hand combat, most of the time it got really flat between the two characters, and the actual like combat and like choreography, like martial arts almost element to it was not played clear and was not easily readable. It felt as if kind of the same thing wound up happening in the first like Batman Begins movie, where it's like Batman's action was was messy and blurry, and we were too close in a lot of moments, or we'd lose them or something like
Right.
this. We didn't necessarily lose the
L- l-
characters. I think overall we were just too
lots
close
of
with the
cape
characters.
movement. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
like even at the end there, when they had the duel, like choosing to show the fight from like almost behind into the side of Paul
Right.
didn't do any service to the fight itself because it just really flattened the two against each other for me.
Right. And they were moving really quickly. So like a side shot would have really I think it would have really helped. We talked about this a little bit earlier. My critique on the fight scene, particularly that last scene, um, they kind of fell into the trappings of what I feel Hong Kong cinema has already solved and figured out. If you watch, like for example, The Raid, that's not Hong Kong cinema. That's from Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch The Raid, it is very heavily inspired by Hong Kong cinema, obviously, to be sure. And it is just a side, you see character here, and they're, but you see the full body, this person, and they're fighting, doing whatever it is that they're doing, and you see it all. The camera
Yeah.
kind of backs out, and you can see the entire action scene. I
Yeah.
mean, again, you look at any of the best Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee, yes, Jackie Chan, yes. Jet Li, yes. You look at any of those movies,
Yeah.
and there's very sparing use of super close-ups. It's normally done for effect. One of the best examples of that would be Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. When you had Zhang Ziyi and Michelle Yeoh's character, and they're fighting, and Michelle Yeoh's character is switching out weapons because they keep getting broken by the green Destiny sword, and there were times where they where they're spinning or whatever, and they it's a close cut shot, but then they zoom out, or the next shot is them from a distance. So you're never just like in the mix of it. This veers more so on the like shaky cam, born identity, born supremacy, born conspiracy, whatever those movies are, the Jason Bourne movies,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like it's all jump cutty and like shaky, and then Jason Bourne wins. I'm like, all right, like that's cool, like that's its own aesthetic and style, but it leaves a lot to the imagination in ways that are less helpful. And again, I think Hong Kong cinema, they've really kind of figured that out a long time ago and have
Yeah.
solved for that.
They did. They
And I
have.
wish that we would take a hint from there. Now, I also said that this is not nearly as bad or as criminally edited as like what it was it Taken 2, where Liam Neeson is climbing over a fence and there's like 32 jump cuts. I mean,
Yes.
that's just
That's just terrible.
horrendous.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
so it's nothing that bad. The other issue with that fight scene is like, okay, he had a blade in him, and I'm thinking he's gonna take that out at the last minute and stab him. And it doesn't look like he did that. I'm not exactly sure what he did. If he had an extra blade, like it's not super clear on first viewing. I'm like, how did he like stab him? What did he stab him with?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah,
did he
he
take
was
did he
like
take getting stabbed? Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely hard to see. He was grabbing the blade that was going to stab him with his hand, which by the way, the ripped that man's fingers. And then
Yeah.
and then I think down below he pulled out another blade and gave him like one of those stabs, but that was completely off camera. So I mean,
Yeah.
they played it for the drama of like, oh, they like someone got stabbed, and they're trying to like leave a mystery of like, oh, is Paul dead, or is that guy? He's like frozen and like triumph,
Yeah.
you know.
It was an attempt at misdirection, but it was just like, I don't know. It's like I didn't see enough for this to really be meaningful or impactful. You
Hmm.
just see the guy keel over and die. And it's like, all right, well, you knew that Paul was going to win. It was more just a matter of how. And so when they don't even show you the how, it's like, well, eh, at the very least, it's a missed opportunity. At worst, it's just poor editing. And maybe a better scene was left on the cutting room floor. I don't know.
Yeah. You had brought up
So,
when we did talk earlier about this that it's possible that they just weren't good enough martial artists, combatants to show it from far enough back. I tend to not like think that specifically because they could have practiced this fight 15,000 times and gotten it
yeah.
perfectly dynamic. So like it had to have just been choices by the director.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, clearly that guy's not a martial arts director, and it's a shame because like there are other action scenes, other fighting scenes where there's a lot more that's visible to the audience. They pan out a little bit more, and you can see more of what's going on.
Hmm.
And I wish we had seen more of that.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to the first movie, his final knife duel with the guy, and apparently he kind of swings back and like stabs him this way and catches him in the back, and apparently it was a mortal fatal wound, but it wasn't exactly clear. So this seems to be a trend with the director and the editor. They don't seem to know how to like what to show and what not to show and in what proportions. And
Mm.
so yeah, it makes what
Although
should be
the
climactic scenes a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, although the Jason Momoa fight scene in the last movie is probably the best fight scene in the movie. There were still some moments, shots that were too close, but it its choreography was at least, I think, a little more inspired. I don't know that there was any. Okay, maybe there were a couple sand fights. The one where they go under the crawler, they pop out of the sand, they go under the crawler, and they're hiding behind the crawler's feet. I think there were a couple cool moments in that fight, but they're also not trying to specifically only show one character. Well, you know what? I take it back. There was one moment where we're following behind Chani, and you don't fully know if it's her or if it's Paul, and she's fighting, and then by the end of her fight with somebody, she like turns around to the camera basically. There's a couple moments that do have good fights, but anytime they had like a dramatic one on one, the Gladiator Coliseum moment was better surprisingly than that last fight, and it was certainly better and more interesting than uh Beast's Dave Bautista's character final fight with Josh Brolin's character. Yeah, that was basically just not a fight, unfortunately.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so let me go into something else that kind of didn't work for me. I don't care about Paul Atreides. Like, I know the whole film is like geared around showing you how he's like space messiah, and I'll get into that later. But like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, I don't care. He is not as, I don't know if the word is charming or engaging or endearing, whatever the case may be. Like, he's a conventionally like kind of normal, I mean, decent looking guy, I guess. So I guess that's why they cast him. But like, I don't care about your visions. I just kind of want to like hurry up and get this going. You know, I feel like whenever he gets like, you know, and he sees all these visions, and I'm like, all right, can we just like, can we just figure out what this is and just move on? That's how I feel.
Mm.
I don't
It maybe
particularly
comes
care about
down
the mom
to
either.
yeah, that maybe comes down to even though there's so much that happens between these two movies, it was just one book after all. Um,
Yeah, this was the second half of the first book, as I understand. So I don't know if the first book is finished now, you know, and the second book is like all their conquest or whatever. I don't know for sure how much is covered. I'll have to go back and look at that up. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Paul,
So I
I
mean,
left that movie being like, yeah, the man, that movie was fun. I enjoyed being a part of it, but Paul is an annoying character,
he's
and
kind of
I kind of
annoying and
think
like, yeah,
I'm starting to believe that that's intentional by the author.
maybe. Like they're just scenes that I felt like weren't quite acted right. So for example, he drinks the water of life, the blue Kool-Aid that he drinks.
Yeah.
And then he go and then you don't see him like collapsing, but then he laughs. But then he he's laying there and he has a very low pulse. It looks like he's dead, but he's not dead. Yada yada yada. And then Zendaya mixes her tears or whatever. And just the way he wakes up is like I, I felt like that could have like he could have like kind of like just kind of you know like give an example of a scene that's very similar to that was done quite well. Indiana Jones Last Crusade. Sean Connery's character gets shot when they're in the temple looking for um, the Holy Grail. Indiana Jones finds it and it has the water inside, and the whole thing is like the clock's ticking because he suffered a mortal gunshot wound by the Nazi guy, and he's about to die. He's about to bleed out, right? So Indiana Jones has to get back, and he pours the water on his wound, and it's like it's like hydrogen peroxide, and basically heals his wound. And the way that Sean Connery acts, he's like, it's like he's like really kind of gaining his life and his vitality back. And it was like impactful. It was a dramatic scene.
Yeah.
Paul
Yeah.
Atreides wakes up. He's just like, all right, I'm up. You know, like
Yeah. Uh huh.
All right.
It was pretty low
And
key.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, for most of the movie, he's just kind of even keel, and that's fine. But then there's a part where, after he wakes up and now he's like ascended, I am the one who will bring balance to the force. There's a lot of Star Wars in this movie, seeming Star Wars in this movie, for better or for worse.
Yes.
He's Anakin space Jesus, right? And we'll get into that.
Yes.
Um, but then like he's going in and he's like he's like, I am the one that will lead you. And then he starts reading people's minds and telling them what happened to win people over to the fact that like he can see visions, he can see in the future, he can see into the past. And then he's the Alub Al Gaib, whatever that word is. I don't know. I promise you, I don't remember what that word is.
Yeah.
But he he's like he's turning up, but it's just like I'm not really buying it. Like he's like, look at me, I'm angry. It's just like I don't know. I don't think he sold it. And that was
Mm.
like a big moment. It was just like, okay, you know, the person that sold that scene was Javier Bardem.
Every time.
Oh, as prophesied, you
Every
know?
time.
Yeah. Like even at the end of the movie
Lisan
where
al
he's like
Gaib.
yeah, he's
He'll
like
do that.
rallying everybody to get onto the ship
Uh
so they
huh.
can they can
Yeah.
they can do their I don't know genocide, whatever. I don't
Well,
know,
of course,
whatever space
Lisan al
genocide.
Gaib wouldn't say he's Lisan al Gaib. He's just so humble. That makes him Lisan
Yeah,
al Gaib.
as written, right?
Yeah.
But like even at the very end, the last scene of him like almost like recruiting people to get on the ship and go fight space wars with them.
Yeah.
Um, I said space wars, not star melee, not star, not a war in the stars. Um, yeah, he's the one that's like really selling you on the emotional impact of what's happening. It's not Paul. Um,
Paul
man,
is very vitriolic. He's very like 0 to 100 within his personality. There's multiple times where he like blows up at his mom. But and by the way, like people look for half a second, whatever. But there are a couple times where he blew up at his mom and like nobody was paying any attention. Anyway,
yeah, that was
uh,
weird. Okay, so
yeah.
there's some Star Wars in this movie. There's also some Lord of the Rings in this movie. You know, when people, like what was it, Schmeagol, or even Bilbo Baggins when he got too close to the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way their voice would just turn all like weird
Yes.
and like demonic.
Yeah, they had that for
Silence,
the for the Bene Gesserit. Yeah, whenever they're using
Yeah.
the like vocal mental control
Yeah.
ability. Yeah.
Yeah, the inner voice of the Benihana Jezebels, like whatever their name is. You know,
Yes.
yeah.
Dang.
Them girls, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
what
right.
they are. Uh-huh.
That needs to be we need to retitle this review the Benihana Jezebels, like part 2.
100%. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely.
Hey,
Um
they
so
control the
yeah, they're
they
like
control the
talking over.
galaxy.
It's like when they don't get their way or when they want something, just do it. It's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they had that whole voice. I'm like, all right,
Let me do
that's
it.
definitely like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of the scene when Frodo's like playing around with the ring and he's like, oh, I just want to, Bilbo Baggins is like, I just want to, like that whole
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
you know.
100%. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's
Speaking of
what it is.
thumbnail, that's the thumbnail right there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
this finna go viral.
I know, right?
God help us
Man.
all.
All
Anyway, but
right, back to Paul. Back to Paul. Yes, yeah,
yeah,
he's either
I
like
don't care.
he knows everything that's gonna happen most of the time. I mean, he's a little bit unsure a couple times, but overall, he's pretty like calm about things because he just like he knows how things are gonna go ultimately. There's some moments
Yeah,
where he tells Zendaya's character that he's concerned about, becoming this holy war starting prophet,
yeah,
and that there's a lady that goes to the south that brings about millions of deaths and stuff, and then we find out
billions.
it's true. And then we find
Yeah.
out it's his mom. But then when it comes to the moment where he's like, he's like, I ain't going, nah, nah. And then Zendaya's comes over here and like convinces him. She doesn't have to do much convincing. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, and if I do it,
All
I'm gonna
right.
do it all. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
do
like,
it all. You're like, whoa, bro. You're
yeah,
like,
he was
wait a
very much
second.
against it until he wasn't, you know. It's
Uh
like, all
huh.
right.
Yeah. Uh huh. And then
Yeah.
yeah, when he steps up inside that like holy space, basically, man, he didn't give any care about these people and their lifestyle and like how they did went about things. He was like, I'm doing this. No one can stop me, huh? You gonna stop me? I'm gonna tell you about your life. I'm gonna tell you about your life.
Right.
Worship me, basically.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah, that was weird. And then like, at the very end they got the Order 66 basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of Revenge of the Sith in this movie. Um like he just flips on a dime, like he drinks that water and like all of a sudden he's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like these weird like character motivations. It's like I don't want to go. Then Zendaya, hey, you should go because you have to, whatever. You know, nobody, everyone thinks you're a foreigner, but you're not a foreigner to me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And but then she's all mad at like everything that the mom's doing, but the mom is doing what you knew she was going to do from the beginning, and that's what he
100%.
was against until he wasn't against it.
Yeah.
So I'm
There's
like,
a
all right,
big
again,
time jump. There's a really big time jump that happens out of nowhere for me. Right when the mom's already gone through the giant sandstorm separating every, northern and southern hemispheres basically. The point where after he's convinced to go, they're starting to go through the sandstorm. And then all of a sudden we cut to him like going to drink that blue Kool-Aid. And then Zendaya's like landing in one of those ornithopter planes. I'm like, whoa, wait a second.
yeah.
When
Where
did
did
he
that?
get
How did she
here?
get there?
How did she get in
Yeah,
this
that was weird.
ornithopter? Like, when did he decide to do this? I couldn't remember. Like, early in the movie, did his
Yeah.
mom suggest to him, like, through the voice, to go and do the process?
I don't know.
She
I thought it
might
was weird
have.
that all of a sudden, yeah.
She might have. I'm kind of forgetting. She might have, and that would make sense because otherwise, I'm like, how do you know to go and do this process? Or maybe I guess he saw it in a dream. Um, yeah.
The
So
Dream
look,
MacGuffin, yeah.
yeah. I mean, we were talking about this in the first movie as well, but like, man, when you have a Messiah character, when you have a prophesied character, geez, it can be done really poorly. This is probably done moderately, but man, do they really harp on like the prophecy, the prophecy, the prophecy. I'm seeing these dreams. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. Oh yeah, I'm being it. I'm gonna do it 100%. Yep, I'm about to kill everybody. I always will love you. Remember this. All right, Florence
Wait,
Pugh,
yeah,
let's
I'll
go.
get back to that. But
Yeah,
number one, there's a narrow path. There's
I know,
one
right?
way we can do this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
all right,
Someone was
all
watching
right.
Doctor Strange. I know this book. It was around before. We understand this. But as I said at the
Yeah,
beginning, the qualms are probably with the book, but I'm just talking about what's in the movie here.
right. He's like Space Messiah Napoleon. I just got done watching the Napoleon movie. It's okay. It's Ridley
Yeah.
Scott. It's got its strengths. It's okay. But like,
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, we got a comment here saying that his mom did tell him he needed to drink the water. Yeah, so I think yeah, she
yeah, she
incepted
did.
that into his mind. So that gives the reasoning.
Right. It's just like, why spend all this time talking about how you're against it when you're going to end up doing it? Okay, this may be a weakness of the book, but it's just like, to me, it's so prophesying can be done to good effect, I guess. It can just be lazy storytelling, lazy writing. And again, it's like we create this existential drama for the character that's ultimately going to be resolved by him doing the very thing that he claimed he didn't want to do for 2/3 of the movie. Ugh, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that kind of storytelling just kind of wears on me.
Hmm.
I tend not to care. I tend to check out. And
I think
so
what they're doing is they're trying. He's trying to make him into a sacrificial character in a way where he the only way to do the right thing is to kind of do the wrong thing and become like a villainous character. So he the only way to save the Furman was to go down this path and become this, genocidal maniac. Now on that, maybe all the people he murders are just terrible individuals. Like I guess we'll have to wait to see that. But
right.
anyways.
Right. The only way to save Padme is to all right. All right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Fine. Maybe George Lucas was ripping off Dune. Entirely possible.
Could have
I
been.
don't know.
Could have been.
Okay, so um yeah, the Harkonnen guy, the main guy at the end, the guy
Yeah.
that's played by what's his name? He played Elvis.
Yes. Uh-huh.
He's always puckering. He was always kind of puckering
Fade
his
Rotha.
lips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's always puckering his lips in a way that makes me not think that he's very tough.
Yeah. All right. Let
I mean,
let
like,
me look.
like,
To be fair, all we saw was he fought like three handicapped combatants, and he just murders people because no one's going against him. So
right.
he might be physically capable, just because he's young, but he might be a terrible fighter if he really had to fight anybody that had any like substantial amount of skill. Now I know Paul is supposed to be like, yes, like you said, Anakin. He's like one of the greatest fighters ever for whatever reason. He was trained. He was trained. We saw training in the first movie by Josh Brolin. Like he's probably trained by was it Duncan? Was the other character's name? So okay,
Sure.
okay, we'll give it to that. He's been traveling with the Furman, but Fade Rotha, he just be yeah. We've only seen him fight cripple people basically, which actually
Yeah, or
doesn't
just
make him all that impressive. Like for me as a character, yes, that last guy
he's just
hadn't.
yeah.
Yeah, that
He's just
last guy
slitting random
hadn't
people's
been
throats.
exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay,
I get it.
yes, we
You're a
saw
bad
him
guy.
turn off the vibration protection shield when he fought the guy that was not as handicapped. This guy's been in prison for who knows how long. He probably was underfed. Don't act like this guy was at the peak of his ability and rest or anything
Yeah.
like that.
He wasn't completely malnourished. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And if he didn't have
So
that vibration armor on the first time, he would have died from that guy's strike to like his heart or something. Um anyways,
right.
yeah.
So
But sorry, before we get too much into that guy. Oh wait, no, you're gonna talk about the Messiah thing later. All right, we'll talk about the Messiah thing later.
yeah, that's not really a dislike, but it's just kind of side color commentary.
Okay, well,
Um,
on that
kind
point,
of.
are you still gonna talk about that later, or we covered a little bit of it, right? But
Yeah, I'll go into more detail about it
okay,
later. Just
I'll
and more so like observations. But
yeah,
as far as what I didn't like,
yeah,
um,
hmm
the mom, her character, I didn't like her. I don't like what she's about, what she's doing, the way that she, like she's just I don't care for her character. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some characters are written to be unlikable, to be disliked. Um,
mm.
so I guess I mean that's not really a negative. She was just an unlikable character. But as far
we
as what I
just
didn't like about the movie,
we just see more
um,
of the like the Bene Gesserit within her, like because in the first movie
yeah,
we get the feeling that she like loves her son, but I guess as time goes on, it really just more becomes like no, she loves that he's the gonna be the Lisan Al Gaib more so. Finds out we've basically find out she probably didn't even love the father because yeah, as we saw with Leia Sedow's character and even I guess with her to some degree. Yeah, that's just what the Bene Gesserit does. They're just like manipulating people and having children is all a part of their grand manipulation.
yeah. Um, okay, so like I said, I didn't care about Paul, and I didn't really care about the mom. And as far as like Paul, the character, the acting for that character, I don't know. Years ago, when Captain Marvel came out, we had opined or kind of assumed that Brie Larson received poor direction, and it's not so much that she was completely disinterested in playing the character.
Mhm. Mhm.
She looked like she was completely disinterested in playing the character, Carol Danvers. But I think we both like felt, and this is more so what you were saying. This was years ago when we had this conversation. And he's like, I think that she got poor direction and she gave the performance she was asked to give, but it
Mhm.
was just poor direction. Uh, the directors just didn't give her, good instructions.
Yeah.
So I feel that may be the case with Paul. And so his
Maybe.
acting is just kind of flat. And then when he's trying to be emotional, like to me, it just that also kind of falls flat. Okay, so
Mm.
that's kind of like mechanical. Like that might
Yeah.
have been done better by a different director, whatever the case may be. Or maybe he's just not the greatest actor. I don't know.
Mm.
Folks can come to their own conclusion on that.
Yeah.
What we cannot differ on, what we I think we all will agree on is the fact that Christopher Walken is hilarious. Whether he intends to be or not, he is wonderful. Like he turned that whole movie into an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Man.
We gotta stop. Like I can't even do a good Christopher Walken impersonation, and I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna poison the internet with a bad attempt.
Yeah.
But every time he talks, I'm like, it feels like an episode of Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job. Like it feels like we're being trolled with a goof.
Yeah.
It's like I can't
Yeah.
take him seriously as like this stoic, cold-hearted, emperor of the universe. Christopher Walken? Are you serious? Really? This
So
is they couldn't have gotten Sir Anthony Hopkins. They couldn't have gotten man. I mean, they could have
I
gotten
think
almost
that's part of
anybody.
man, I think that's part of what is happening, or at least what plays out. I think so he's supposed to be very shrewd and has a good sight of like how to handle things. Like he engineered, well, technically he's a pawn. Technically he's a pawn of the Bene Gesserits. The Bene Gesserit are the ones that are doing everything. So the fact that he's like aware of things going on, but it's not like this master strategist or this like, almost fully serious presence, I think works for what is like presented there. But that said, I do agree that it makes the emperor into a spineless character for me, which is maybe the point.
Like even his body language, he's just kind of like his shoulders. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It's like I can't. This dude's the emperor. Word.
I was
All
very
right.
surprised when we saw that as Christopher. I was like, wow, okay, yeah,
I'm just
all
waiting for
right,
him to talk about how the universe needs more cowbell, more
yeah.
spice, and more cowbell. Like
Hmm.
I can't. It so completely took me out of the movie.
It's fair.
Um,
It's fair. And to what I was saying earlier about the like cameo element, like we've talked about before, man, I think it winds up being a detriment. I know people can really enjoy seeing different actors and things, and I can too, but sometimes it's just it like literally does take you out of the film, out of the immersion of being in this world and this like having these characters to see certain people. And it seems like for you, Christopher Walken is one of these actors that's like you just
hey,
popped
you
out.
guys, we gotta do the thing. Like he's almost talking like that. I'm like, This is amazing.
He did withhold it. I could tell he was withholding it. He wasn't fully
But that
going
just
into
makes it
that.
more obvious that it's in his heart, it's in his soul, fighting
Yeah.
every fiber of his being to be that
Yeah.
guy that's talking about blah, 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 blah. Like, I love Christopher Walken. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
Listen, Christopher Walken has played
Let's
incredibly serious
see.
roles in the past.
Yeah.
He was Frank White. You ever seen
Yeah.
King of New York? Frank White. That movie is amazing.
Hmm.
He was a cold-hearted gangster killer guy, right?
Yeah.
If you guys have not seen King of New York, if you're ever wondering what Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G. is talking about, I'm the Black Frank White, like all rappers always talking about Frank White, Jay-Z, Biggie, New York rappers. They're talking about Christopher Walken's role, and I think it's like an early '90s, late '80s movie called King of New York. It also has Lawrence Fishburne in there. He plays a fantastic role in that movie as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
But yeah, Christopher Walken plays Frank White. He's like the drug gangster mafia kingpin guy.
Well,
And so
you
he
know,
can play super serious role, but
we need
you guys,
we
we
need
gotta save
more
the universe, and
spice. It's
I'm just not there.
Paul, why do you do this? Why? We need
Why
more
do
of
you hurt me like
the
this?
spice.
Yes, yes,
Please, please. We're trying
yeah.
to be here together, but just worship me as the emperor. The spice is it's all we
Oh.
need. Bow, just die.
Oh my
Lisan Al Gaib. What is it? Is
god. I'm
it?
so good. I wish they had him say every single one of those goofy, all of those words. I wish to God
Uh-huh.
that I hope to God that in the director's
I
cut,
know, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Musal Agaib.
Yeah. Oh, Gaib. I heard you
Pray to
were
God.
riding the
Pray to
Shai
God.
Halub.
Oh my
Was Shai
gosh.
Halub nice to ride? Do you need more Halub?
Oh my gosh. Oh, the Benny Gesserit. They got me by the cajon. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh.
This woman,
Oh
she's in
my
my
gosh.
head all day, all night. I'm like the
Oh.
space Frank White.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I don't understand that casting choice. Like when they saw when he when he walked out in that costume. When he walked out of that costume, like when he bro, go back in the dressing
The way he walks out of that,
room.
the way, you know how they like get into his like sports fortress thing that came down from his ship when the Atreides and them like come in and like Atreides kills his grandfather, which we'll get to in a second. He just he's kind of like inches back in the room. He's like, "Oh shoot, we done been caught. What are you gonna do
Bro,
to us now?"
dude, the minute he came out of dress and makeup, came up on set, the get the hell, you're fired. Get the hell out of my set. Either change the wardrobe or don't do the movie. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Oh my god. I couldn't believe it. It's like
yeah.
he's like a shrunken man. He's like a tiny little man. Oh my gosh.
It
So yeah, that
it reminds me 100% of like a movie in which there's like an older white guy that goes to Japan, and then for whatever reason in the
uh
movie they put him into like traditional Japanese attire, and
kimono. Oh
he's
my
like
gosh.
walking out. You're like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Bro, they might as well have had Steve Buscemi as the Emperor of the Universe. It would have been the exact same effect to me. You
Dude.
know,
Hmm.
holding his skateboard over his back. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme.
I
Hey there,
have,
young
yeah.
fellow,
Uh
young
huh.
kids.
Yep,
Like
definitely.
it basically would be the same thing to me. And so again, Steve Buscemi has played serious roles before. There's
Hmm.
this little movie that's like a
And
kind
he
of a cult
also looks
classic. It's
like.
called
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, there's kind of a cult classic movie. It's called Things to Do in Denver While Dead, and he plays like a hitman assassin in that movie,
Yeah.
and like he's totally dead serious. That movie has Christopher Lloyd. It has not Ray Liotta. A bunch of other like well-known people. Oh snap!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another movie. It's like it's kind of a weird. It's a dark comedy, but he can play serious roles.
Look, I respect it.
Um,
Some of our best dramatic actors have been comedians.
Steve Buscemi is amazing. Don't get me like I'm like, but it's just like as
Hmm.
the emperor of the universe. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
But like
I
I
almost respect. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's like making Barney 5 the Emperor of the Universe. Yeah.
bro, that's exactly what it is, dude. Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, yeah.
I
Okay,
think
so
that has to
I,
be
I
what the author was doing. I think we're landing right on top of the author wants Paul to be this this character that you just wind up not liking ultimately because of like who he's becoming and who he needs to become and all that stuff. I didn't like him from the beginning. That's another problem. But I'm not liking him also as man. That scene where he was inside the like holy space and was like running up in there. I feel like on the one hand, the author would want you to see it as like Jesus going inside the temple and like knocking over the tables and stuff like that. But it's not that. It reminds me of like I was struck when I saw that moment. I was like, dang, this movie almost feels like some Islamic propaganda. Like this guy up in here like saying being the Messiah, but at the same time like just like being angry and like self-important and vindictive and just like he just came across as a nasty character to me in that moment. I'm like, dang, I'm glad that's not how Jesus rolled up and did things. This guy's over here like,
yeah, Jesus wasn't a warlord.
that's a
I'm really not trying to
huge.
quote. I'm really not trying to quote Jordan Peterson. God forgive me, but
Uh huh.
he's quoted as saying this in some speech he gave a long time ago. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, number one, the influences and the inspirations from this universe are definitely more Middle Eastern and
Mm-hmm.
hence Islamic in nature, which is fine. Um, yeah, so Paul definitely seems a bit more Prophet Muhammad than Jesus of Nazareth.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, that's fine. Like that's what the influences were for Herbert,
Yeah.
whatever his
Yeah.
name is.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But again, like I put Christopher Walken as a negative, not because I don't like Christopher Walken. I quite like Christopher Walken, but it just completely took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And you
Like
mean
I
to tell
said,
me that
yeah, I think he wants the emperor to be basically a
yeah,
nobody.
maybe like kind of like the what is it in Wizard of Oz, the person behind, I don't know,
Yeah.
just kind of someone just moving levers and
The
stuff.
wizard.
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the wizard himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and Florence Pugh does not look related to this dude at all. Like, there's nothing goofy about Florence Pugh. She's a gorgeous woman. She's beautiful, and you see her next to like Christopher Walken. I'm like, y'all ain't blood related. I don't know. That's just me.
It
Oh, and
depends on the
let me go.
mom.
Let me. I mean, that's a high genetic hurdle. That's a, that's a high genetic
Dang.
hurdle to clear. I'm just
Oh
saying.
man. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that would have made it more perfect for me is if she, like, when she was talking to the Benny Gesserit women, she's like, hey, hey, this is what we gotta do. If she did the whole thing,
She had
that
to
would
have
have
though.
just made there has to be outtakes of that. Oh,
Dude, I
glorious,
totally
wondrous
hope so.
outtakes.
I totally hope so.
Oh,
But at the same time, like
I'm
I
yeah,
wonder if Christopher Walken like lets that kind of thing fly around him or they wouldn't want to do
yeah.
it around him.
I don't know. But like the scene where Paul goes like within a span of like 2 minutes, nah, maybe the span of like 3 minutes, however long that fight lasted. It's
Hmm.
like I will always love you, Zendaya, Zendaya. I will always love you.
As long as I'm
Oh yeah,
alive.
As long as I'm alive, I'ma always love you, girl.
Which he
You're my pookie
technically died
poo.
at one time. Right now, he wasn't fully dead.
Yeah, you know. And then yeah, I'm gonna take old girl as my wife. You can live. I'm gonna take your daughter as my wife. And she was like, you know, obviously, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? She's like, "Wait, you're taking this woman as your wife? All right, like, and this is where I feel like the film did Zendaya kind of dirty, literally and kind of figuratively. It's like there's a way to shoot her, her preferred angles where she just looks stunning, and I felt like they did that with Florence Pugh. Um, but I feel like they almost went out of the way to make Zendaya look plain or like overly tomboyish in certain scenes. Now, in fairness, she is a tomboyish kind of character, but they can make her look really feminine if they want to. Like the silhouette scene where they're in the tent together, her and Paul, and, they ostensibly just made love or whatever. And, she's very, very feminine in that scene. Again, all you see is the silhouette, right? So they can film her in such a way that really brings out her beauty and her femininity. And yes, in fairness, she's a warrior, so she can't be looking all dolled up all the time. But like, there's still like angles that you could shoot her in that like really accentuate, you know, her
Mm-hmm.
natural beauty. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they did that way more with Florence Pugh than they did with Zendaya. I was like, because Florence Pugh looks stunning in this movie. Like what they have her dressed up in. They got her all dolled up. The whole nine. And I was like, oh, that's kind of not. I mean, especially in that last scene where like Zendaya's like totally crushed and heartbroken when Paul says he's gonna take her as the wife and they'll rule together. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd be out too. Like as far as storytelling is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just got done telling her, "I will always love you." I'm like, either that's a problem with the book or that's a problem with the editing of this movie. Maybe both. I don't know. But I was like, all right, I don't know. It was weird. It was
That's
weird.
why he said it. That's why he said it. He wasn't sharing everything with her. He saw the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once he drank that juice and he saw the one thing. He became even more of like an insufferable character where he's like he knows everything. He's gonna do the path, take the path. But we're supposed to remember along the way he's doing this because he's gonna save Chani and her people on their planet. So we're
Right.
supposed to still like him because of that.
I guess. But again, it's just like I don't know. Maybe this isn't in the book, but even so, like, hey, I will take her, and she will be like a figurehead, and we'll rule together. But I'm really just keeping her alive because I'm already spoken for. I already got somebody, something to that effect. But he
Mm.
didn't do that, right? He was like, yeah, we get married. I'm like, all right, like, yeah. So,
Hey, he did
yeah.
that in one of the other Doctor Strange versions, but it didn't work out. So he
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
do it
yeah.
this way.
There's also some Doctor Strange in this movie as well, for sure. Okay, so um the pacing was okay. I didn't have a problem with the pacing in the first movie either.
Mm.
Um I wish we had, I mean, I don't know if the book has the content to allow it. I wish we had gotten some like Oscar Isaac flashbacks.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac is just so much more, he's more engaging. I'd rather like watch a flashback with him than watch Paul. I mean, Oscar Isaac's a better actor. Like, I don't know. Like, he brings more to the movie than Paul does, even though Paul's the main character. So, yeah, I don't know. I just don't like Paul.
That's fair.
Paul Atreides. Um, yeah,
I
that's most of what I didn't like.
Okay, okay. All right. So, one of the bigger things that I didn't like about the film, though, which yet again, probably just it's just I mean, you know what? No, this is how it. This is technical execution element of how things are played out. I don't think I was just confounded by the conflict strategies of nearly everybody except the Furman. The Furman were apparently fantastic at strategizing how to go about fights and stuff like that. Harkonnen were absolutely terrible. Outside of them being like imposing at the beginning with their guys like floating up on top of the rock, um, they just proved to have zero strategic sense in this film in the way it was depicted. One, we found out those floaty dudes couldn't run, so when it came to actual combat and they're walking everywhere, that was a major handicap for them. When the Furmen are running around in the sand around them, they were just looking like chumps. So they
Yeah.
immediately lost their like terror factor from me by like showing that like they were horrible. I mean, they had guns and stuff, and they were bad shots. And then apparently, I mean, okay, they had their Thopter vehicle like with the shotgun thing. That was taking out some Furman people, but nobody on the ground was really doing anything of any importance. And then we
Right.
go to, and I'll get to a thing I like with Dave Batista's character. Unfortunately, when he winds up leading a charge at their like home base, he flying with these vehicles and they shoot a bunch of missiles at the side of the rock of the home base, and it kicks up this massive amount of dust and debris, and they land in the debris and they get out and they walk towards the place to go, I guess invade them on foot, and the Furmen are just like walking towards them slowly, like dodging things, and the Harkonnen are just like looking scared, like in the dust, and they're like attacked once or twice. There's a couple guys taken out really quick, like just feet in front of them. They're not shooting at them. They're not trying to help out. They just let the guy get taken out. And then as the Furman approach them and Paul approaches them, they're like, "Oh dang, it's time to run." So that showed me like, wait a second, you were dumb enough to yeah, okay. You shoot the side of their complex. All right. You call them out, but then you land in the dust and you're not prepared for that kind of like obscuring of your vision. Like you could have landed not in the dust. Your strategy could have been much better than what it was. So that's another moment.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of two things. So number one, yeah, the whole like you guys lived on this planet and occupied it for decades before Atreides came in and took it over, right? Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
guys should have all this stuff figured out. How to stop people from destroying your caravans and your spice shipments and like all of those things should be dialed in. So the fact
Yes.
that they're not, it's like, what's going on? I don't understand. Like, how are you so incompetent?
Yeah.
The other thing, going back to the Harkonnen, the Skarsgård, he's the in the goopy slime. It's like in the first movie he was like floating around, but now it's like now he's kind of like walking around. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought you were the floaty guy. And then all of a sudden, like when he meets with the Emperor, they land on Arrakis, and he's got like these tubes coming out. I'm like, well, why do you got those tubes? I don't remember seeing those before. What's that all about? And again, like he's like now he's using his feet. I'm like, all right, but I thought maybe you were like a Jabba the Hutt, kind of like slithering around or something like that. Oh, you just got feet, and sometimes you float, and sometimes you don't. And actually, that whole scene where like the Emperor ship lands, but the security was so lax and so bad, and it looked like he had like the Knights of the Round Table that were like defending him, and they're just standing there waiting, and nobody seems to have these shields on, and the guy's just kind of like
Terrible.
standing there walking forward the dust. I thought he was going to get his head chopped off or something like that, but like nothing really happened. That whole scene was, and then Paul walks in, just kind of stabs him, and then just kind of like walks away. Like that whole thing was kind of like weird and
Yes.
clumsy to me. I was like, what's happening right now? I don't get it.
It
Yeah, it was weird.
completely deflated any of the like presence that the Harkonnen that Vladimir had. Like, wait a second, so you're telling me he was the main villain of the first movie and this one, and he's strategizing to get his nephew up in there. He keeps sending his other nephew to go, and his nephew fails multiple times, and he's still giving him more chances, which is kind of ridiculous. But then this dude, he like okay, he shows up with the Emperor, and then he just kind of like cowers on the stairs and is beaten within within seconds. And Paul's like, "All right, here you go. I'm gonna kill you, grandfather." I'm like,
Or
"What?"
uncle or whatever.
Uncle, yeah, yeah. I'm like, "Wait a second. How? What?" So this is how the main villain of the last like movie in 2/3 is gonna get taken out. Like this is how it's gonna play out.
Yeah, that's weird. That was weird. And like the whole family dynamic between the two cousins and David Batista, and he had to kiss the guy's feet or whatever. You mean to tell me that David Batista couldn't like dog walk this dude? He's got like 60 pounds on him. He's a warrior. You mean to tell me like he couldn't beat this dude in a fair fight?
Yeah, yeah,
Stop. This is Drax, y'all. Like y'all
yeah,
stop playing.
yeah.
I don't.
That's that's
He
another
he, he couldn't
downside for
fight
him.
androgynous duck face, duck lips guy. Like you can't beat
Yes.
that dude.
Yeah, he totally could have. He totally could have. And that's the other thing. I
All
came
right.
to like so in that scene where Dave Bautista's character is um he's failed like a couple times now. He's going in and they're in the dust and Paul's walking at him all slow but like I guess threatening enough to like scare him away. I'm like I actually felt as if he was more interesting a character than Paul was because he actually had a challenge and a conflict that we didn't see how he was necessarily able to overcome. Versus Paul, where it felt like, oh, everything's gonna work out for him because he's prophesied or whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
I was like, dang, okay. So I actually wound up liking Dave Bautista's character. I can understand where he comes from. He's a madman. He's in a ridiculous evil character, but then he's also been nurtured in that as well. So like I feel sympathy for him on a level even in that regard too. But they gave him nothing. Like none of
Yeah.
his fights, none of his conflicts did he ever really do anything at all. Because yeah, he winds up losing a couple times, and then he's chased away by Paul and saved by another guy shooting. Not Paul. It was a lady that almost killed him, and someone in the ship like shot her before she stabbed him or
Yeah.
something. And then he kisses Fade Roth's hand, and then even in the fight later on with um Gurney, he just loses immediately. I'm like, they gave
Yeah.
this character nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
here's another thing I didn't like. Okay, the sandworms, the whole sandworm thing. In the first movie, there's like this thing that is to be avoided, right? Because if you get too close, then like you're a goner, right? You know, thump, thump, the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like everybody and their mom's got one of these thumpers. Just like, hang on, let me call this Uber, let me call this Lyft. Doom, doom, and just hop on. Like it was just like a mode of transportation. It made these things like completely not scary anymore. And how
I'm split.
how do you get off this
I
thing?
like how it looks. I think they played up like him riding that worm for the first time really cool. And I actually like
Yes,
how
I
it
like that
ends.
scene.
Yeah, and I like how it ends where Chani's character is about to catch one also. But I 100% agree what you're talking. Understand what you're talking about, especially when they got the caravan with all the kids and old elderly on the back going through a sandstorm, and they control them completely. I mean, apparently you just pull their flaps a little bit and you can control them 100% like a horse, and they stay on the surface and everything.
Yeah, and then actually on the other end, okay, so number one, I did like the scene of Paul riding the big one for the first time, and like
Mm-hmm.
they had like the camera behind them and like all the sand and everything. I thought that was done really really well. I liked that. I liked it until I saw everybody and their moms just riding these things like it was nothing. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But then when they go into that little religious area, the little temple area, and they got the little one, the little Tremor. I keep calling them Tremors because I'm an '80s baby. I
Yeah.
love the movie Tremors, right? It's a classic
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And then this black woman, she's got this special water bending stance or whatever, and
Yeah.
she doom doom, and then she catches it right, and then she takes out the blue Kool-Aid out of it or whatever, the blue dye. So I kind of thought that was kind of cool. It's like, oh, we can't have more than one of them because they'll just kill each other. Meanwhile, outside they got like 3 or 4 of them right next to you, and they're just riding on them. Like, all right, these things are Harley Davidsons now. All right, well,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
did think they were cool and scary like 30 minutes ago, but anyway, so that was kind of like, oh, like now you just made it common and like generic. I was like, oh, like they're supposed to be these big scary things that could eat you, and then you're gone. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
when they showed Paul looking at what's his name? Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Stilgar, Javier Bardem's character, and he was riding around on the worm. She would like. I think Chani even tells him that like, oh, that's like only something that he knows, and like I don't know if he can even teach you that kind of a thing. And then before you know it, yeah, he winds up learning it, and yeah, then they skip to everybody. Now, technically, there's just a handful of them. There's three of them or so, maybe four. So there's only a handful of people who can drive them, but anyone can jump on top of them, I guess.
yeah, and I mentioned this before. Like the little handles they have, there is no loop or strap on that thing. So if you let go, you are dead. You're gonna die. You know, you better hold on. You better not have a hand cramp, or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
You're dead. Like
I
that's
actually
it.
am curious to see how they got off it. They never really showed that, did they?
No, that was the other thing. They never show you how you get off these things. Like it's just like
Uh huh.
because they're going so you're like this the whole time. Like how are you? You know, you're not gonna jump off. Like you're gonna die. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You're gonna yeah,
Movie derpity derp.
you're gonna roll on the ground at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, these things don't stay terranean, they're subterranean. So like they're, unless they're eating something, like they're going back under. And unless you go under with it and dig yourself out or something, like yeah, it's like I don't know how they do that. And then they're using them in battle. I'm like, all right, all right,
Yeah.
whatever.
And
Sandworms
that
are
fight again proved that the like strategic capabilities of anybody outside of the Furman was ridiculous. This guy decided to land. They decided to land the Emperor's ship in the middle of a circular mountain range and have zero military presence on that mountain range in any way, shape, or form.
bro. They didn't hear Paul gassing up the crowd. Trey, Hargan, like they didn't hear all that.
Uh huh.
Like, yeah, some of this stuff was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. It's like, this is good for the trailer. We're gonna keep it in the movie, and all right, let's get lunch. Like,
It's in the book. It's in the book, but I don't know if the like actual formation of the mountain range or like the if the book goes into like the actual approaches and strategies of the armies. That I feel like is an interpretation of the director, and he needed to do some consulting with some actual like strategic battle analysts or something.
yeah.
Anyways, so I think
Okay,
we are we
so
we got to wrap this up here.
okay, I had a
Any
couple
any
observations.
any final thoughts regarding
Yeah,
this film?
this movie had some weird messages. Maybe weird is the wrong word. Has some interesting messages.
Hmm.
Like, all right, so in the first movie, and we talked about this in our review, it's like number one, I did some research, and apparently, the book does not specify any characters on the basis of race or ethnicity. So, whatever the race or the ethnicity of the characters are, were decisions that were made by the filmmakers. All right. So then you look at the first movie, and there's like four black people. One of them's like the herald that's like reading from the emperor, right?
Who never showed up
And
again in this film, by the way.
no, you never saw this dude again. So I was like, all right, so that's probably for the better because, like, the other black folks didn't fare so well. There was the guy that had the computer brain.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very light skinned individual and really good actor, by the way. I've seen him in other films.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he didn't die, but he was a failure. So I'm like, all right. But then there's only two other black folks. There's the Fremen lady, she bites it, and then there's the Fremen guy that's like irrationally angry and like bloodlusty, and like Paul kills him in that knife fight. You know, this dude that's been fighting in the desert his whole life, and then Paul just comes up and stabs him in the back.
Was it Jamis or
And
something? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, okay, these
I mean, he
characters
had hacks
exist.
though because he saw the fights in which he lost.
Yeah, I guess. So like these characters only exist to, help Paul or Paul and his mom get to the next part of the story. They serve no other function, and they're quickly disposed of. And I was like, all right. It was very kind of Bagger Vance-ish, or Driving Miss Daisy-ish, or anything where like there's a black character and his sole purpose for living is to help the white person get along their way and complete their story arc.
Hmm.
So that was a major criticism I have. Um, there was a whole white savior thing, and again, like they're in the desert and whatever. Um, so there's that part. In this movie, it's like it had messages that I thought were like really like that's really interesting. Again, all the Benny Gesserit ladies, they're all white women. And they're all just kind of scheming and crafting and behind the scenes spinning their webs, weaving their webs and manipulating events and stuff like that. It's just like what does this movie want me to like to walk away from? It's like don't I was like, gee whiz, like do not do, don't trust these white women to do anything, man. Like you trust them, you put them in charge, it will result in bloodshed by the billions.
Dang.
I'm like,
Dang.
again, I didn't make this movie. I'm not the one that this is not my film. I just watched this like, oh my gosh, like they're all like scheming and
And they're trying to have
conniving,
trying to
getting
have
knocked up,
kids from everybody.
trying to
Yep.
have yeah, they're trying to have everyone's babies. And it's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
golly, like I mean, it's like the Benny Gesserit is like the Gloria Steinem CIA agents of the universe, man. It's like I didn't know that a sci-fi movie in 2024 was going to be telling me all the reasons why I shouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton for president. That's not what I came in expecting, but my goodness, I mean, they did not they did not they didn't waste any time. I was like, "Oh my goodness." It's funny cuz like the first movie was like, "Oh, you got the whole white savior thing, right? That's Hollywood doing what Hollywood does, right? Not the first time, won't be the last time. But this time they're like, you know, stay, these boss babe, independent, ain't got no man, but getting knocked up by all these men. And, these white women just crafting behind the scenes. I'm like, well, that's an interesting message, I guess. Um, yeah, culturally appropriating, disseminating lies and fake prophecies and just all kinds of just horrible stuff. And again, it all results in the, potentially in the bloodshed of billions of people across the universe. I'm like, sheesh. I mean, that's a message. I mean, again,
It look,
do you agree with that message? I don't know. I
I can't
mean,
deny it. I see what you're saying, man. Because I just was thinking for a half second right now, like, yeah, unfortunately, any white lady in this movie was connected to the Bene Gesserit, basically.
the Benny Hanna Jezebels. Get it right. They all doing dirt, man. They are all doing dirt. I'm
Oh, you
like,
know
all
what? I take it
right.
back. I take it back. Oh shoot! I almost said Anya Taylor Joy was not, but sh- I can't really speak to her as much because the mom was acting like she was having full on conversations with her as a baby, which I
Yeah.
think is her actually having conversations with the adult version of her, like through the blue juice,
Oh
ability
gosh.
stuff.
Yeah, if you say so. Your guess
She
is as good
might
as mine. I don't know.
she might break from the whole Bene Gesserit thing, like when we see her actually. But as of right now, she still is connected to all that.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, she's of the bloodline, blah blah blah. It's like, man, like, do not trust these women. Stay away from these women. These women are they're terrible. They're monsters. I'm like, all right, like,
Hey, there's no
again,
getting away. There's no getting away. They have control of every, like she says at the end. There are no sides. If they control all the pieces of both sides, there are no sides. Apparently,
all right.
you're just gonna live
Again,
life underneath their control.
again, I want to make this explicitly clear. This is not my message. I'm not the one promoting this. I watched the movie and it seemed like that's what the film was promoting.
Mhm.
Make of it what you will. I'm
Yes.
just giving color commentary. Like, this is what I saw. I was like, oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Um, because again, you have like folks from the desert, and they all tend to be like olive skin or brown skin or whatever. And then like all the people that are doing all the stuff. And again, is that like a presentism thing that they're doing? I don't know, because like if that were the case, then why'd they do the whole like white Messiah, white space Jesus thing in the last movie? I don't know. Were Republicans making the first one and Democrats making it? Like, I don't know. Whatever.
No,
Like,
no. Like I
part
said,
one is
I
for this
think
side of
the
the culture war, and part two is for this side of the culture war. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess, whatever. I
Well,
don't care. It was just like, these are some peculiar, interesting messages that the part one is promoting, or no, promoting. That's fair. And then part two is like, bro, stay away from Gloria Steinem, CIA agent. You know, this feminism will kill you. That seems to be what they're talking about, right? That seems to be what the movie is pushing. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting message.
I
I don't
think
know.
Paul is probably gonna, in some degree, break from underneath their control. But along the way, the author is making Paul into a despicable character as well. So,
Yeah. I would be really interested to know what the like, was there any kind of like political commentary that Frank Herbert was making at the time that he wrote the book?
mm,
Was this in like allegorical reference or symbolic reference to some political figure during what was the 60s or 70s that these books were written? I don't know.
so
Um,
I did read a little bit. And I think I believe the Trades family and storyline are supposed to be kind of historically based on. I think it was the Greeks at one point. I'd
okay.
have to I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, I mean, that all kind of tracks. Uh, you know, yeah, I'm just very curious. Again,
Mm.
this is just my color. This again, I cannot stress this enough. Like, this is not what I'm promoting or advocating. This is just color commentary. This is what I saw. I was like, oh my goodness, this is in the movie. You watch it. Leave a comment. Let us know if that's what you noticed. If that's what you picked up
Hey,
on. If you picked up on something different, please let us know. I'd be very interested to see if other people picked up on that or if they had a different take on it. I don't know, but I
I
thought that
don't
was
think.
super
Yeah,
interesting.
I agree with you, and yeah, thank you for making that clarification. But in my opinion, I don't think you've made that your commentary. You're not your message from this movie or anything like that. It's present.
Yeah.
You also said a bunch of these ladies were pretty, so it's not like you hate white women or anything like that either.
No, oh dear God. No, I do not. I don't hate white women or any other women. Um,
Uh-huh.
I don't know about this film though. I mean, again, talk to the filmmakers, talk to the scriptwriters, maybe talk to the estate of Frank Herbert. Actually, I think his one of his sons is one of the executive producers of the film. Because I saw a bunch of Herberts on the executive producers when the end credits were rolling. It's like, oh, that's interesting. It's like when you have like the James Bond movies. I think it's like the Broccoli family or
Broccoli, yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
Broccoli family. It's the same kind of deal. Like, the estate is still in charge of, the movie and the intellectual property. And so, if Dune wasn't a cash cow before, it definitely is now. And so, yeah, I don't know. Shout out to the Herbert estate. I don't know, whatever. But but yeah,
So, okay, talking about the whole Messiah thing,
yeah.
yeah, I definitely do believe that Frank has written these characters to not just be the shining clean, like easy to side with Captain America sort of character, Superman sort of character, where like they're 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 very human and they're very good and they're gonna fight for the right thing all the time. Yeah, I think he's definitely telling a different story in which, honestly, any Messiah person, individual, heroic characters, and people following just heroes and stuff like that. Um, so
Yeah, maybe.
I may be really sad by the time this comes to an end, but at the same time, like it for me, it just highlights how much, yeah, how much of a breath of fresh air Christ is ultimately by comparison.
Right.
Because man,
Yeah.
anytime we get a Messiah character in anything, they wind up being terrible individuals and
Yeah.
somebody I would
Or
not want to follow.
yeah, or like in the biggest air quotes ever, like murderous by necessity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, all these people got to go because we have to secure the peace, whatever that means. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, full disclaimer: Josiah and I are both Bible believing Christians, and so um, we do see kind of through lines in films that might connect with the Christian worldview or contrast with the Christian worldview, and from time to time we will bring that up. Um, but yeah, again, like it, to reiterate, like the fact that there were some very clear Arabic slash
Oh,
Islamic
mine. Sorry,
influences
one
in this
one
movie.
second. My connection just disconnected. Okay. Uh,
Are we back?
it's saying offline at the moment.
Oh,
They heard us talking about
what is it
Jesus.
showing?
Um,
Yeah, not really, but like, just I was about to go in saying like the fact that it has like Arabic or Arab or Muslim. To me, it doesn't detract from the movie. Different cultures have different stories and make different contributions, and they can make for great storytelling.
okay, I think we might be
That's what I
back.
was
It's
trying to
just
get
not
to.
saying.
Are we back?
I think so. It's not saying that we are, but I think we are. All right.
All right. Well, let me just land.
Yes.
Let me just land my plane saying that, yeah, although we are Christians, we still recognize that other cultures, even other religions, make different types of contributions that can result in like fantastic storytelling. And so, I think some of the things that make the Dune universe interesting are that they do draw from Arab and thus Islamic influences and inspirations. It gives a certain color to the story, and it makes it its own. And I think it makes it really interesting. And so, yeah, yeah, yeah. We may identify or observe certain through lines through a biblical lens, but we also recognize that like other cultures, even other religions, have interesting contributions to storytelling. And so, yeah, overall, I think the movie was a decent movie. It had its strengths and it had its weaknesses. I don't think the runtime was one of its weaknesses. It was about 2 hours, 42 minutes. So it felt like it needed to be about as long as it was. it didn't feel too long. It felt about as long as it needed to be to tell the story they wanted to tell. So
That's it. Yeah.
overall, I think the movie is pretty decent. And yeah, had some interesting messages, interesting symbolism, and yeah, if you like the first movie, then you'll like this movie, I think. If you enjoyed the first installment, then this one's going to have a lot to offer you. And it goes in slightly different directions, and it offers you things that weren't present in the first movie. So you'll have new experiences inside of the Dune universe. Was there any other thoughts you had, Josiah? Anything you wanted to add to that?
I think that's good. Yeah. Uh, feel like I've covered most of what I wanted to say about this film, and yeah, it's for sure worth going to watch on a big screen. I think yeah, if there that was one of the takeaways from the first movie. If you're on the fence between watching it in screen or waiting for home, yeah, it's meant to be watched on a big screen, and you're gonna wind up liking the movie. I think more because of it.
I agree. Seeing it in 70 millimeter was a fun experience. So I'm glad that I saw it that way. Um, yeah. All right. Well, this has been our first attempt at a live stream. We wanted to get this out. The movie just came out, so we're hoping that people will enjoy the conversation. Um, we got all of our OBS stuff set up for tonight. Um, YouTube likes to put these little hurdles in order for like live streaming from your phone or live streaming from this or that or that or the other. And so, yeah, I'm glad that we were able to make it work. I think we'll continue doing this. Please let us know in the comments how you guys like to consume movie reviews. I've been talking to Josiah about the possibility of doing like quick little mini reviews or rapid fire reviews. And then for people that want to dig deeper or join the conversation, we'll have our live streams that are the longer form conversation. That's just kind of what we're thinking about doing. If you have any thoughts or comments, helpful, constructive criticisms, we are open and receptive to that. We're just starting, so we're trying to grow our audience. And yeah, we're going to keep getting better. So, um, yeah, thank you for sticking with us. For those of you who are in the chat, I can't see it from my screen. Josiah, did we have like one person in the chat at one
Yes.
point?
Yeah, we had a
What's their name?
Janelle
What's their
Martinez in the chat.
Okay. Well, thank you, Janelle. We really appreciate your viewing and your participation. And
Definitely.
yeah, we are looking forward to doing more of these as we ramp up for the spring movie season and the summer movie season. So stay tuned. We're going to keep watching movies and we're going to keep reviewing them. We enjoy having these conversations and we love that we can now invite you into these conversations. So come join us. And yeah, we'll be back for the next one. Until then, my name is Austin.
I'm Josiah.
We are the Super Cinema Bros, and we will catch y'all in the next one. God bless. Grace and peace to you all.
God bless. Peace, y'all.
All right.